Could you do a video on the tech spot for glitters? Of course I can. Hello and welcome to a Beyond All Reason build order guide. Now, as requested, we are on glitters and we are going to take a look at the tech spot for glitters. Just to clarify, that is the main tech spot in the center. So you've got the air player in this location here. That's simply because of space-wise, the air player often doesn't require quite as much space. Of course, you've got the corner spots that sometimes will tech, but I would much prefer those players to assist their front line. So we're going to be taking a look at Jägermoo. So he's a very skilled player, actually sitting at 44 open skill. And he's going to take us through a fantastic build order. So I'm just going to pause quickly just to go over what he does at the start. And this is something that I would argue on glitters and a lot of other maps actually as well, now that I'm playing with it a little bit more. It's a fantastic opener actually. So you're going to go for all 3 metal extractors, which is going to completely bottom you out on energy. So with the commander's base income of 25 a second, as well as the amount of energy you start with each game, you can get the 3 metal extractors out pretty much bang on when you hit 0 energy. So that's something you want to be doing. And that's simply because the faster you get these metal extractors up, the faster your energy metal income is going to increase. So for every second you delay getting this metal extractor up, you are losing 1.8 metal, which is something you want to avoid. When this final metal extractor is completed, you will have 0 energy, so producing a wind turbine is going to be painful. So what you want to do is you're going to go into a solar collector instead. Now they are very, very metal expensive for what they do. They only produce 20 energy for 155 metal, but that is fine because they require 0 energy and you don't have any energy. So what you're going to do is you're going to power a solar collector, and that's going to continue producing energy for you. In fact, if we... Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a bug. Okay, yeah, there we go. So occasionally in replays, if you look in the top screen, so the top resource screen, it will display them incorrectly sometimes. It's a bit of a pain. But anyway, as I was saying, by the time this solar collector is built, you'll see that Jägermoo has banked up a little bit of energy, because currently the only energy being consumed is the metal extractors, and his commander is also producing 25, so he's going to bank up a little bit of energy, but he's also going to get quite a bit of energy from the solar collector, and that's going to be enough for him to build wind turbines without any problems whatsoever. Of course, as you can see up the top there, producing 45 energy, consuming 42 with the wind turbines, so he's going to go into a few of those. Now you're going to continue producing wind turbines. One other thing I will say is it does depend on the wind speed. So if the wind speed is dropping, you might want to build out another wind turbine before you go into the bot lab. It does require 64 energy a second to build the bot lab with the commander, and the majority of games you're going to get away with just 2 wind turbines. Now in the bot lab, he's going to queue up 4 construction bots and 2 Lazarus. And that's a very deliberate order. So all 4 construction bots first, into the 2 Lazarus, and you'll see why that lines up nicely. Before he powers out the first construction bot though, he is going to go back into building more energy. Now I think the solar collector is a little bit redundant here. You can go into the wind turbines. I would prefer him to go into wind turbines if I'm honest, simply because they're a little bit more efficient and he is not lacking the energy right now. Of course, the solar collectors, when you do have a bit more energy income, you can reclaim these for a full refund, which is nice. But I would prefer to see 2 more wind turbines there instead. Obviously, if the wind drops right the way down to 1, 2, then feel free to build the solar collector. Anyway, so once he's built that, he's going to power up the bot, and then he's going to go back into building more energy. So I'd say another 2 wind turbines, and then power out this second construction bot, while the first one is going to go up and claim the metal spot. I will point out he has got this one queued. This is the air player's metal spot. If you are going to build that, please hand it off to the air player. Otherwise the air player will take it themselves. What I would suggest is once you built this one, immediately go into wind turbines. The second bot is going to come out and go for this one here. And of course the commander is going to go back into building another wind turbine in between the bots. So he's now going to power out this construction bot. And that's simply because if he was to stand there and power him out with the commander without scaling wind, you are going to bottom out like he is now. But he's about to get that bot out, which is fine. Now we should go back into making more wind turbines. This construction bot is going to come down and take the third and final metal spot that is for you. And he's also going to queue a construction turret. So you want to go up to about 5 construction turrets, but you want to go up slowly, because this map is a little bit different to other maps. And the reason I say that is because if I pause it here quick, most of the maps, you're going to have quite a few tech players, you're going to have quite a few front lines, but the front line isn't going to be quite as big. So if you take a look here, these are where the players spawn. This is the front line here. So these players have still got to walk all the way up, claim all of these metal spots, as well as get their defense up. So they're not going to need T2 for quite some time now. The air player is also going to have a few issues because aircraft require a absurd amount of energy. So he's going to have to continue scaling his energy production before he's even going to be able to make use of a T2. So if I play it again, this final construction bot is actually going to come out and it is going to produce a construction turret here. And the commander is going to finish up that wind turbine. And this lines up nicely with the Lazarus. So now that the Lazarus are coming out, you'll see that he is about to bottom out on metal. And he's going to be able to use those Lazarus to reclaim the rocks in the area, pay for itself, and then some. At this point, once you've got the Lazarus out, feel free to queue it across the map. So any rocks that people have maybe missed because they've gone vehicles or are not collecting simply because they have missed them, feel free to eat them up and put them back into your economy. So at this point, you're going to have one construction bot scaling converters. I mean, it doesn't really matter which one. Of course, you've got this one over here, a little bit AFK at the minute, but that's fine. He's just built that for his air player, and he is going to hand that off to his air player in a moment. So one construction bot is going to be building energy converters. The reason he's gone for this construction bot up in the top is because that is the safest area. Of course, the energy converters are incredibly explosive. They will chain react, so you need to keep them relatively safe. The second Lazarus that comes out is going to reclaim the bot lab, and the commander is going to continue scaling energy. He is going to get the second construction turret up with this bot that was queued on it, but he's not going to rush it. And the reason being is because he doesn't really have the resources. While he's got 190 metal sat in the bank, doesn't really want to power it into the construction turret because the construction turret is just going to then stall his economy out. So building it slowly is perfectly fine. And this is something you're just going to continue doing. So he will go up to, as I mentioned, he will go up to about 5 construction turrets eventually. Of course, he's got one queued up over here. There we go. There's the last one. But it does depend on how your team is doing based on the frontliners of this. So you can see that the blue is actually pressuring there. I believe the blue player does actually come in and pressure quite hard here. And you'll see Jagamu actually react to that. So there's that con turret finished. It's going to help finish that construction turret. And you can see that he's bottoming out on energy. So I would like to see this con turret actually help the commander in producing wind turbines. Okay, so I've skipped ahead a little bit here. You can see that he's got his 3 construction turrets up. The Conbot up here is still producing the energy converters, and he's literally just still scaling wind. Now at this point, on most other maps, you would actually have the T2 up by now. You would actually sacrifice the commander for it, but that is not something that he wants to do on Glitters, because nobody can make use of it yet, even though it is getting quite late. Instead, what he's going to do is when he starts to bank up on metal, I have too much metal, he's going to place down solar collectors. And that's because those solar collectors are going to produce more energy for him, but they're also going to act as a metal bank. It isn't very much, it only stores 155 metal at a time, but it also turns it into energy. At any point, of course, as I mentioned, he can reclaim this for a full refund, which is why I call it a metal bank rather than, say, something else. You could place down a metal storage, but I think it's just a bit more efficient to go into the solar collectors because you're not going to overflow by too much. And you have plenty of build power at this point. You do have 5 construction turrets up. Now, I would like to see the rest of the combots actually helping to produce more wind turbines. As you can see there, he's actually going to go for 4 energy storages, which is going to help him by banking up energy. And then when the T2 is finally needed, he is not going to run out of energy to actually get it out. Emu from the future here. I would like to just quickly clarify that when he is going for the 4 energy storages, that is simply because he is actually going to make a sharpshooter for his frontliner Cheetah. Sharpshooters require 20,000 energy, so that's why he has made 4 of those so he can bank up enough so he can actually build the sharpshooter without any interruptions. In your games, I would argue that 2 energy storages, you could potentially even get away with 1, but I would recommend 2 energy storages would be plenty enough for you to get the T2 construction bots out without any sort of delay. One thing I love to see is the fact that he's actually going to send his commander up to the front line. So as I mentioned, the blue player actually came in and destroyed quite a few of these mexes. So he's going to send his Laz to res that mex. And he's going to send his comm up to the front line to produce a few light laser towers. If you do not have a particularly great micro, or if you're, say, a relatively newer player and you don't have the skills to macro at your base as well as control your commander, feel free to hand your commander to the frontliner that is, say, may need it the most or seems to be the most competent. But I wouldn't advise detonating your commander. So we're actually going to go up for a 6th construction turret here. You can potentially make the argument to go into the T2 here. You do have 700 metal banked up. Of course, the wind is biting him in the ass a little bit here, which is probably why he's gone for a construction turret, just to stall it out a little bit. But the players have made it to the front line, and they've actually started banking up a little bit of metal. Meerkat Maker on the side here has 1,000 metal. Cheetah not quite banked up on metal, but he's still fighting on the front line. And you're going to rely on people gifting you metal to actually get the T2 lab up fast enough. So as you can see, he's now placed it down, whereas he's still scaling wind. Of course, that construction bot up here is scaling energy. One thing I will make a note of, though, is that building these wind turbines, you can either build them in rows of 2, so that it is very unlikely for them to chain react, or you can build them with 1 space. So if you select the constructor, click on the wind turbine, Shift Alt drags it out. If you press Z, it makes space between them. X will remove the space between them. But if you build them with 1 space like that, you're going to be a-okay. They're not going to chain react, and you can just drag out the entire square. Now then, this is what I mean by energy, metal banks for the solar collectors. So now that he's running out of metal because he's building the T2, he's going to start reclaiming these solar collectors for 155 metal apiece. Again, he is still scaling wind, so he's not completely and utterly rushing this T2 out to the point where it cripples his economy. It's going to continue scaling wind. It's going to continue scaling the energy converters. One thing I will say is he's still getting up his bank. Of course, he built 4 energy storages, so he's got plenty of energy to actually get the T2 bots out. That's the reason for it. Of course, T2 construction bots, 6,900 energy. If people pay him, that is going to have the metal covered. So he just wants to make sure he doesn't stall on that. But he's also got the energy converter still. So as soon as his energy banks up so that it goes past the energy conversion slider, he's going to have quite a bit more metal income to place into the advanced bot lab. He's just building up his economy so that he can take full advantage of that. Another thing to note is in the top, you can see that there is 0% next to how many comms arrive. That 0% actually is how many, the percentage of energy converters that are currently open. So as you can see, now that his energy has plummeted, so he's producing a sharpshooter, they are not working. He doesn't have enough energy in the bank. Now the sharpshooter is something that I would avoid unless you have a very good player on your team. So as you can see, Cheetah in front of him, 57 OS. Cheetah is going to make fantastic use of this sharpshooter. It's just going to allow him to keep the front line held completely. But again, if your team consists of lower OS players, then I wouldn't suggest giving the sniper out because it can die very quickly, actually. A lot of people actually do not make fantastic use of snipers this early into the game. Of course, there we go. He's sending it straight off to Cheetah, and that's going to be able to pick away at the enemy line and actually allow him to do a significant amount of damage, actually. And that's simply due to the range and the damage that it deals. It can one-shot pretty much every T1 unit. In fact, if an enemy commander walks up too close, even that is going to have a bad day. You'll see that he's got 2 transports. He has been shared them by his air player. And he's going to start handing off T2 constructors. One thing I will say is that you want to be using the transports to hand off the T2 constructors. So immediately grab the transport, have it come over, pick the T2 up, and then take it to its destination. In fact, the air player's actually got his own transport coming in, which is good to see. But you'll notice that the blue player has pushed through with ticks, and that is the reason for the bot lab. He's actually going to make some ticks himself just to keep himself nice and stable. The last thing you want at this point is ticks coming around and, say, taking out metal extractors, taking out your energy converters, or even wreaking havoc on your wind turbines. The reason he's gone for a T1 lab and he's not gone for T2 units is because T2 units at this point can be quite energy intensive, and he doesn't really want to stop producing the advanced construction bots. And that is part of the reason for the energy storage, actually. You can see that he's got plenty of energy, so that when the players did hand in metal for the construction bots, he was able to immediately power them out. So he's handed off 2 construction bots already, and now he is only just upgrading his advanced metal extractors. I would argue that the first con that comes out will upgrade 1, so you can set it to upgrade. Like, what you slow it down. You can set it to upgrade like what he's done here, and then your con turrets will automatically start upgrading that, and then you can hand the con off. The con doesn't have to stand there and produce the metal extractor the entire time. So that's something that I would do. And then obviously the second constructor comes out, queues the next one, you hand it off. Third constructor queues the third one, you hand it off. And then the fourth one, I would argue you should probably just keep. We'll actually see what Jangamo decides to do here. Something to bear in mind is you need to be producing more wind turbines with these construction bots, and he could probably stop producing ticks at this point as well. Just channel his resources into what he is building. It's going for another sniper, and that's, I should imagine, to hand off to either Cheetah or potentially even Evolved Monkey, and that's because he's going to have some issues with this push. So he is going to be helping the front line there as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to this map, especially this map, and that's because you've got such a large front line. You do need to be paying attention to it, and if your allies are having issues, you need to be supporting them. I understand that you're in the tech position, you want to be scaling your economy as much as possible, and it might be tempting to go for slightly more income rather than building units. But you really do not want to be greedy in these situations. See, these ticks will probably take out Evolved Monkey. Is he going to be able to save him? Jagamu actually saves him with those ticks there, so that's a fantastic pickup. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he should continue producing ticks. In fact, now I look at it. So that second sniper is going to go to the front line. I believe he's going to hand it off to... Yeah, he's going to hand it off to Cheetah. Did Cheetah lose that sniper? I think Cheetah might have. Nope, it's still there. It's doing plenty of work. So back to Jägermu. I'm just going to speed it up quickly here. So I've just fast forwarded it quickly. So he's continued to hand out the construction bots. He's actually going to use the T2 cons to make these metal extractors up here. The reason he is scaling his construction turrets in the area that he's doing is because that is going to be A, the safest area, B, they're going to be able to hit the most metal extractors. You could argue potentially building some more down here so they can hit this metal extractor, but he's already got that one done up. He's going to reclaim the T2 lab, and he's immediately going to go into a fusion reactor. Please do not go straight for an APHIS. You will stall out on metal, and you will stall out on other resources. You just will not be able to get the APHIS up in any sort of amount of time whatsoever. Whereas if he goes for this fusion reactor, he's going to get it up with the metal from the T2 lab. T2 lab actually provides you with almost 2/3 of the metal cost of the fusion reactor. So the last little bit you just have to sort of scrape out. I would like to see these construction bots still producing, either helping produce the fusion reactor or scaling wind, because wind is the most efficient use of metal to energy in this game at the minute. Of course, APHIS is fantastic as well. It's actually going to go into a Juno. So he has seen the Tick army on the front line. We're going to player view. So you can see they are definitely ticks with the way they are moving. So he's going to go into a Juno and try and catch those ticks. That is actually a fantastic idea. I do like that. That's just to help his team out. This is another thing, another reason to be paying attention to the actual game. And then he's going to go for a second fusion reactor. Now you can see the vote to resign there, and simply because of the Jaguar tanks. I think the front line could potentially have used a bit more help rather than this player maybe going for a fusion. Maybe producing a few more units, bringing them over. But as far as what Jägermu's done, I think Jägermu has played almost flawlessly. And that's something that I would advise that you guys copy and follow. There are a couple other builds that I can think of. In fact, there is a build circling on Reddit right now. I cannot remember the name of the player that was posting it, but he mentioned it a little while ago, actually. I'd probably say maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it is definitely plausible to be one of the better builds. And that's simply because it relies on taking these 3 metal extractors first and then walking out to take the rest of them. So you are essentially producing more metal in the early game. You can see there, they did not chain react completely, just a little bit. Whereas those were built right next to each other, they completely chain reacted. So that's another good thing there. That's going to be all from this build guide. One thing I will say about the fusion reactors, I would build 3 to 4 fusion reactors before you decide to go into an APHIS. And of course, make sure that you are taking full advantage of that energy. As you can see right now, you could probably go into a few energy converters just to make sure you are taking full advantage of that, because metal is going to be the bottleneck. But I would like to see these actually turn around on the fusion reactor and just to get that done. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.